Okay, here we are again. Hello, 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 and welcome to So You're Thinking About Being a Chief of Staff with Leigh Felton. My name is Leigh Felton. This is a series where we talk about all things Chief of Staff, and specifically, the goal is to help educate and shed light on what it actually means to be a Chief of Staff. And I have started the series because there's been so much confusion about the chief of staff role. And I have seen like literal job descriptions with the title chief of staff. And you read it and you say, this is not a chief of staff role. And so when I started investigating, it's like, okay, why is there so much confusion about this? It's because honestly, the chief of staff role, even though it has been around for a while, it has gotten confused in the context. And so there's so many executives that are hearing, you need a chief of staff. A chief of staff is this and this is all of these amazing things, but there's no context as to what it really is. And so they just go out there and do it. And then that gets replicated. And then this confusion just gets exacerbated. But as the role has become way more popular, and even with all of the layoffs and the way the industry is going right now, I've seen just a huge uptick in the number of executives who are looking for a chief of staff partner. And so I just thought, I know that there are some resources already out there, but why not have a continual conversation where we're diving into it and helping to shed light on it? So not just the people who are potentially interested in the role can know what to expect and can be prepared and can, and get all of those things together, but also for the individuals recruiting for the role or partnering with the role to give you the opportunity to get the most value and impact out of what I personally think is an absolute critical but amazing function to have in any organization. So I want to start the way I always start. I would love to know if there are people out there. Who are you? Say hello to me. Do I have my people in Arizona? I had a few people from Alaska, different places. Just say hello. I'd love to know that you're out there. And although I can talk and talk and talk and I can ramble as much as I want to, it always helps me to interact with individuals and to say, what do you need to hear? What are you resonating with? What are you not resonating with? This is the place for you to ask questions. I get a lot of IMs and, emails and pings from people asking, hey, about this situation or that situation. And outside of my consulting, so if you want to pay for consulting and one-on-one, happy to spend time with you to make that happen. But outside of my consulting, I really try to use this space as an opportunity for us to share and to learn together, because I think it's important, because the questions that you have, other people will have it too. So would love to just say hi to you. Where are you? And just let's make this interactive. And actually, the other thing is the topic that I'm going to discuss today actually was spurred from a specific request from one of the attendees that says, hey, Leigh, you do a lot of, you provide a lot of insights, a lot of information on the relationship between the chief of staff and the executive. Can you shed more light on the chief of staff and the SLT? So, and if you are on chief, and I'm going to go ahead and log off, I was making sure that anybody that dialed into the chief event, that you are coming over to LinkedIn or you're going over to YouTube. And so please make sure that if there's somebody that can log in there, and just make sure that anybody that's participating on that side, that they come into this forum. But so it did come from a participant that says, hey, can you talk about this, please? I would love to know more, whether you're struggling or whether it's just not clicking or whatever. And so that's what we're going to get into. But first, let me say Hello, Talisha from Savannah, Georgia. So nice to have you out there. And Kim from St. Louis. Nice to see you, Rajat. Nice to see you from India. So glad that you're able to take the time on this, I think Friday night for you to tune in. So let's just dive in because I always run out of time and I want to make sure if there's questions that, that I have an opportunity to answer your questions as well. So with all things, what is the relationship? What is the role between the chief of staff and the SLT? And as you probably already know, the very first thing that I'm going to say is, of course, like anything, chief of staff, it is going to be specific most of the times, generically. It's going to be specific to that individual, to that executive, the expectations, to the industry that you're in. So there's a lot of dynamics, as we know, that make all of these roles, all of these functions, and all of these connections so different. But I would say specifically, and I talk about the role of the executive chief of staff. And so I know that not all positions that are listed out there really think of the chief of staff role as an executive level position. To me, with the right chief of staff, with the right expectations, with the right leadership, the chief of staff role, and the reason it has the word chief in it is because it is part of your C-suite. It is part of your SLT. So the dynamic between the chief of staff and your SLT is many different things. But first and foremost, it should be one of peer, of colleague, and of mutual respect. Before anything else, that has to be the foundation that is laid. I think when anybody comes into an organization, you should do more listening than you do talking or planning. So now there are exceptions, and I've been in situations where there've been exceptions where it's so chaotic and just a crap fest that sometimes you got to step in and kind of help right away, kind of get things running so that you can at least be productive and even have space for those conversations. But aside from that, really being able to listen to your colleagues, to your peers, and say, okay, they run their line of business. What is it that they're doing? How does it contribute to this bigger picture? What is it that they are seeing that has worked and that they sincerely appreciate about the organization, about the executive office, about anything? And what is it that they're struggling with, that hasn't worked well? And you go through and you listen to all of that. And that is where you take that time to say, okay, not only am I a peer and a colleague, mutually respecting each other, but also in that chief of staff role, you are a partner. You're a partner to them. You're a partner to them because as a leader, even if they have their line of business, they want to see the entire organization be successful. So even if that means that and leaders should take this to heart, even if it means that you have to make sacrifices in your line of business for the benefit of the organization, a leader will be willing to make those sacrifices. And so it really is important that you have that partnership with them. But sometimes as well, the executive chief of staff is a member of their line of business team. So sometimes the chief of staff needs to put that hat on and say, okay, I need to step inside of the CMO's business and help them. Where do they need help? Right? And then sometimes the chief of staff is a leader and manager of the SLT. So as the chief of staff is saying, what do we need to prioritize as an SLT? What do I need from you as an SLT member? All of those things, the chief of staff role needs to be able to rotate between. And that is one of the biggest reasons that I say, if you are hiring or entering into the chief of staff role, there's so many of us who have worked with the top senior level executives in the industry. And we know there are some amazing egos that go with a number of those roles. The one thing that I would say, and I'm not for or against anybody having ego or being who they are. And sometimes to do some of those positions, it takes having that ego. But I would caution people who are interested in the chief of staff role for having ego, because you have to be able to rotate in and between spaces and, roll up your sleeves and be part of a team, or step up higher and say, you know what, listen to me, I'm leading this. It can't be about your ego. And so I always think of this one example, and I will say hi to Ilya and hi to, to Natalie. I will say this. So I was in one of my early chief of staff roles, and I don't know if it was ego or just over optimism, but I needed to create this change initiative for our senior leaders. So I'm bringing this SLT. We're talking the top of the top, all of these men, all men. Yep, every single last one of them were men. So all of these men coming to the table who had years and years, they had the highest titles, and all of the, they were working not for money because they had everything. They were working because this is their passion. This is where they were. And they figured, I'm the expert at this. I know what I'm doing for my business. Stay out of it. Let me do what I need to do. So here I am, early chief of staff career, and over positive about how everything's going to turn out. So I'm driving this change initiative. I bring everybody to the table, and it's like, okay, now we all know this needs to happen. And basically, this is the role that you're each going to play in this change initiative. And this is how it's going to work out. How do you think that went over to this group? After the first executive stood up and said, so I'm running this. So my executive, the CEO, wasn't even at the table, because it's like, oh no, they gave it to me and I need to run this. And obviously, because of my title and because I was, assigned by the executive for you to do this, then you have to see me the same way you would see the executive sitting here telling you to do this. Right? No. After the first person got up and said, okay, let me run my business, give me my budget or give me my this, and tell me what the ultimate thing is, and I'll go do that for my business. But I'm not sitting in this meeting listening to you. So that person walked away. Then we had two other people walk away. So, half of the executives that I was supposed to be leading through this change got up and walked out of the meeting. And that was not just a blow. And it's like, okay, am I going to crawl into a corner? Am I going to go hide somewhere? But it was a huge lesson. It was a huge lesson. Your title, I'm not going to say title doesn't mean anything. Yes, you earned that title, and title does mean something. Just like you want to talk about the CMO, the CHRO, the CEO, that title means something. Your title means something. But at the end of the day, people and what people need in order to feel partnered with and pulled in, that means more than you think your ego or title will give you that power, and it doesn't. And so as I grew since then, and I learned about how do I interact and engage with these senior leaders, because I need them to listen to me. I need them to respect me. And sometimes I truly need them to just, if I say do this, I need them to go do it. And then sometimes it is more about the dialogue. And if they need something from me, then I'm going to do that. And so, there's all of these dynamics. But at the end of the day, what that particular session taught me is that when it comes, first and foremost, when it comes to the chief of staff role with the senior leadership team, you need to, and you should have a relationship with the individual SLT members. And it's not saying, oh, you need to be friends. I've talked about friendship in an SLT before, and that to me is not the primary goal. But you need to have that relationship and respect. And so first and foremost, you need to build that. You need to, especially when it comes to change initiatives, and that's a whole other story. But people need to feel like things are happening with them, not to them. So partnering individually with the SLT members is going to be hugely important. And then as you bring all of the SLT members together, they know that partnership that they have with you. And then you can bring them together and you can help lead. You can help understand and represent their perspectives, because it's going to be so very different, one person to the next. And everybody's, they can pound their chest and they can say, this is the right way to go. This is the right thing to do. Everybody has an opinion, but your role is to say, I hear you. I see you. And based on what our goal is and what our mission is, this is what we are driving towards. And instead of saying, okay, this is what's going to be best for the marketing organization or the product organization, this is what we're driving for as leaders, and to help them see that it's about the organization and coming together. And it truly is. I mean, I've had conversations with chiefs of staff who have talked about their one-on-ones with the SLT members, if they even have one-on-ones with SLT member. And I'm not going to say that I'm shocked that I've spoken with so many chiefs of staff that do not have one-on-ones with their SLT members. But it still kind of surprises me. I still kind of, I don't understand that. And why is that? Who's too busy? So is it truly that you are each too busy, or that they're too busy, or that you're too busy? Or is there something missing out of the value that you're each getting out of that conversation? So if your first set of one-on-ones with, as a chief of staff, to your SLT members is just, after you've gone through the listening and you're learning and you're actually doing the role, but your one-on-ones is just getting their feedback and their opinion about, okay, let me give you my laundry list of things that I'm working on, and I want to get your feedback or your input. That SLT member sees that meeting as another burden. It's another burden. And not to say burdens are bad. We all have burdens when it comes to business, but it is just one more thing on their shoulders that they have to do when they have a huge list of priorities and things that they think may be more important than what you're trying to do to do the operational excellence for the business. One-on-ones with peers should always be mutually beneficial. So yes, you might need their perspective, and you might want to make sure that things that you're rolling out, that they're not surprises, that they're included, that they're involved. But what value are you bringing to the table? And in some of my roles, it got to the point where if I canceled or moved a meeting with an SLT member, their EA, would reach out to my EA or reach out to me and saying, hey, wait, why did you move this? Why'd you cancel it? They need to meet with you, because those meetings are of value. They're of value. There's insights, there's sharing, there's learning, there's, all types of constructive work that happens at those sessions. And so if you're not having those regular one-on-ones as an SLT member with your chief of staff, pause and think about why. And if you're a chief of staff that doesn't have those regular meetings with your SLT, pause and think about why. And it's so far beyond that, because it's truly important. I have no idea what just happened. I think I got kicked out. My bad. My apologies. I think I got kicked out. Are you still there? I hope so, because I got kicked out, and I don't even know if you all are still there and can see me. That's just strange. But anyway, so it's the reason that's so important is because if it's a one-way street, and if you're showing up to these one-on-ones, either as the SLT member or the chief of staff with a predetermined agenda that just says, this is what I need, 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 then that's not a one-on-one. That's a me to you. That is a me to you. One-on-one means that we're sitting across each other. We might have, as with all people, we have our own priorities. We have our own distractions. We have our own things that I specifically, when I go into this session with this product leader, I need to make sure these two things happen. So we have those things that we are going into this meeting that we want out of it, but so does the person on the other side of that screen. Or if they don't, that possibly could mean that you haven't been providing the right level of value. So what is it that you're bringing to the table, and how are you not just helping yourself in feeding your agenda and checking those boxes off, but how are you contributing to making that other person's life easier or more informed? And so, just depending on, what roles you play as a chief of staff, it's truly important. I would always say, I think I had monthly one-on-ones with, I can't remember if it was every other week or if it was monthly, but I had regular one-on-ones with each member of the SLT. And these were meetings that, like I said, it gets to the point where you better not move them, because you're relying on helping each other, on understanding, learning, and also, if you truly are an executive chief of staff, remember your line of business is running the operational business strategy, the executive office for that organization. So the SLT members who run their line of business, they are part of this. And so they have to, and they should want to hear from you as a leader of saying what they should expect, how it's going to impact their teams, and having those discussions. And so it's so critical. And I can't express it enough that, it's not about intimidation. You're going to run into all of these senior executives that have ego, that have personality, that have prior experience even of chiefs of staff that they feel didn't necessarily add value. So they may not, they may not respect or value the chief of staff role. That was then, this is now. That was that person. I am me. So when you step into those positions, you are a leader of this business and a peer of these individuals, just like they are a peer of each other. That you are not just a catcher. And I've described that word before, catcher. And a catcher is the type of chief of staff where the majority of their priorities, of their responsibilities, are coming from other people. They're catching them, and they could be complex, difficult, very, very intricate, big programs and problems that need to be solved. But the catcher is not about the complexity of what they're catching or the programs that, the work they're doing, but it's the fact that they are being told the priorities of operating the business, of running the office, of making things happen. That's a catcher. A true executive chief of staff is not a catcher, but a leader that says, I'm not just becoming the action item owner, but based on all of the things that I'm hearing and seeing from every aspect of the business, because I have one-on-ones with every SLT member, because I'm running, these set of activities, the rhythm and all of these things, I have knowledge that connects together that nobody else in this organization has. So I can't just catch and say, okay, these are the priorities. Nobody else has the vantage point of seeing all of the connective tissue of what is successfully happening in the org, as well as where there are glaring holes and gaps. So instead of being a catcher, be a leader and say, this is my line of business. So to make this successful, this is what we need to do. These are the priorities. This is how this is the structure and how we need to roll it out and how we need to formulate it. because that is where, as an executive chief of staff, you can truly, truly make a difference for the organization. And if you're being that catcher, no matter how difficult or large some of those programs are, if you're being a catcher and the SLT is seeing you as a person that they are directing and telling you what your priorities are and telling you what you need to get done, that is the seat. When you come to the SLT table, that is the role you will play at the table. You will not be a peer. You will not be a partner. You will be a person that they see as absolutely a relief, amazing resource, an amazing talent. But maybe you don't have a voice at that table as a leader in your line of business to say, this is actually, I hear you, I respect you, and based on what I've heard across this table and what I've seen across the business and the meetings that I've gone to with the executive and all of the business strategy and the vision and all of the stuff that I'm doing for our board of directors, based on my vantage point, where I get to see all of the piecemeal work across every division, organization, team, this is what we actually need to do. And if you don't have that expertise to be able to build that plan or that strategy and to see what you do as a line of business, as true area that organizations need as leadership, then I would say, okay, how do you get there? What are you missing? How do you represent being a chief of staff, being a chief, being a CXO? How do you represent that as a leader? So the next time those SLT members, whether they go to another company or somewhere else, they have seen what an executive level chief of staff can offer a business. And let me tell you, that's what they will demand. And the more people that have that experience and that touch with true executive level chiefs of staff, the more we'll have clarity on the position. The confusion of, is it this, is it that, is it this? The confusion of that will start to diminish. But more importantly, chiefs of staff will get the leadership, the voice, the respect, and the pay. The pay. At the end of the day, when we talk about our executive team, whatever your, different places, people come to me and say, oh, what is the salary? What should I expect as a chief of staff? What is the salary? It's across the board. I can't just say this is the range for a chief of staff. It's across the board. What I do say is that the chief of staff level and role, even if it's at the bottom, should be within the same range as your senior leadership team. If the chief of staff role is not within your leadership team band, and it is 2-3 levels removed, I would honestly argue that you don't have a chief of staff sitting at that table, and you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're putting it in the minds of your SLT, especially if you're chief of staff, that when your SLT has conversations about calibration, about, your people processes or your people pay, and the chief of staff has to leave the room. I've had those conversations like, well, yeah, but when we start talking about promotions and, raises and all that, I'm not part of that conversation. That's the SLT, and HR comes in and I leave the room. The chief of staff should not be able to sit in any conversation that every member of the SLT sits in. And if your chief of staff can't sit at that table, then you need to ask yourself, is this really a chief of staff role that we want? If it's primarily because of the person, is this the chief of staff, person that we need? Or depending on the view of the leader, the SLT, am I limiting the value and the impact? I hired this executive level leader And I am limiting them being able to come in and set a strategy that I truly don't have time to do. Okay. As always, it goes by fast, even when I get cut out of my own meeting. But it goes by fast. And I hope, again, this is my perspective. This is my view after being in the chief of staff realm for a very long time, seeing and feeling the disparities of different chiefs of staff, from those who get the respect, who get the compensation, who get the leadership, and those who do not. And the more of us band together and help drive awareness for the chief of staff role, I think the greater benefit, all of us, not just people who are in the chief of staff function, but the SLT members, the executives, the organizations, they will truly get some more significant benefit. So we're in this together. There can't be enough voices talking about the executive level chief of staff function. And if you see somebody that's talking about a chief of staff function and you see that they are not actually describing a chief of staff in your own voice, in your own way, it's okay to speak up and say, actually, this is, what I've seen, the true value of a chief of staff and what they can provide. And it's okay to help drive that awareness too. So anyway, happy Friday. Thank you all so much. I can't tell if there were any questions before I got kicked out the first time in the IM window. They have all disappeared. So I can't tell. I'm going to go back after this session. And if you have any more questions, feel free to post them in the IM window. I try my hardest to get back into those IMs to answer your questions within the platform. So anyway, until next time, I wishing you all the best luck and success, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.